It's really great to be here. I was vice chair of this committee from 1997 to 2001. So every time I come back to report to you, it's homecoming for me. I want to especially thank this committee, and especially its chair, Matt Grass, last Tuesday approving a bill relating to school resource officers. An incident last Thursday illustrates the crucial importance of expanding the school safety program. Since I took office in January 2023, I have been evangelizing for more school resource officers in our schools. I've repeatedly talked about the nightmare that I have of a maniac invading a school, which has happened in other states and could happen here, and killing 20 kids, as has happened in other states, as I say, and could happen here. If that were to happen, the parents would never recover. If they found out that that school could have had a school resource officer paid for by appropriation from you guys through the Department of Education, and the school decided not to, you can imagine how the parents would feel about that decision making. Last Thursday, we avoided by the skin of our teeth that happening. A maniac invaded a school in Tucson. A school safety officer, paid for with newly available funds and hired only 2 weeks prior, was told about a man behaving strangely in a room with 2 students and a number of staff present. Luckily, this officer was experienced enough and brave enough to know he had to act quickly and could not wait for backup. He arrested the invader and found that he had a firearm and a knife. The invader stated, "I'm going to hurt the children and make them immortal and the school famous." This brave police officer prevented the nightmare I have often talked about. 20 students and additional adults would have lost their lives, and the students' parents would have had their lives ruined by uncontrollable grief. I know something about this because I lost a child. Those who have been opposed to police in the schools need to rethink this issue. Think of the unimaginable tragedy that would have occurred if that school resource officer had not been there. I mean, he was there by the skin of our teeth. We just found additional money available. This school acted quickly. None of the other schools acted as quickly as they did to get their paperwork in, and they'd only been there for 2 weeks. Some opponents say they want gun-free schools. Saying you want a gun-free school is like saying, "I'm an easy victim, come get me." There are no massacres in police stations. Most of what I will talk about today are the efforts of the Department of Education to help public schools achieve better academics. First, I want to mention a couple of philosophical issues. I believe the most interesting philosophical divide in our country today is between people like myself who believe in the traditional American value of individual merit and those who want to substitute racial preferences. Focus on racial preferences does not do anything to encourage hard work, conscientiousness, or creativity. If our country were to adopt that philosophy, we would become a mediocre third world nation, and China would call the shots in the world. Imagine a world like that. If you look up school report cards on the Department of Education website, you will see that I have required the districts and charter schools to answer questions about these kinds of philosophical issues and publish their answers on the report cards. Parents will be informed if the schools are serious about teaching academics or promoting woke ideology. This is important now that parents have choices. I started fighting critical race theory when I fought against ethnic studies in Tucson Unified District in 2007. For a long time, I felt like a voice in the wilderness. But when television stations started referring to critical race theory as CRT, I knew the world had caught up with me. I will always be committed to this philosophical fight, individual merit. The second issue is this: biological males have no business in girls' sports, showers, or locker rooms. News sources are filled with stories about girls who worked hard to qualify for a team, maybe get a scholarship, maybe even try for the Olympics. and then had their dreams shattered when they had to compete against a biological male with the advantages of male muscularship. I'm fighting this battle in court as we speak, and pledge to never stop fighting for the right of girls under Title IX to compete, excel, and take their rightful place on the winner's circle. The news media like to write about controversies, which is understandable, but I'm hoping they will also write about that which absorbs 90% of my time and energy and 90% of the time and energy of the Department of Education, which is helping our public schools improve their academics. First, I'm going to tell you a story. In 1959, Singapore received its independence. The Prime Minister of Singapore went to the Caribbean to meet with the president of a Caribbean nation that had about the same economy as Singapore did. The president of the Caribbean nation said he was going to focus on developing agriculture. The Prime Minister of Singapore said he was going to focus on education. Eventually, Singapore achieved on the order of 100 times the gross national product of the country in the Caribbean. The future belongs to the educated. Parents want their children to have a good academic education so they can have a successful future. People without children want the country to be successful, which is not possible without a good education system. James Carville became famous for making a sign saying it's the economy stupid. If I were to make a sign, it would say it's the academic level of education. I have 15 initiatives designed to help the schools improve their academics. Have you guys all got copies of that list of 15? I think we asked the page to distribute them. They're in random order, not order of importance. All are important. I'm personally involved in every one, so I can answer any questions you have about any of them. I can also answer any questions that you want to ask me about controversies. But for the rest of my presentation today, I'm going to focus on quick summaries of each of the 15 initiatives. Just before taking office in 2023, I received an email from a consultant who specialized in helping failing schools. He said the schools had not had any help from the Department of Education in many years. The department had simply sat in judgment of them. My philosophy is the opposite of that. We cannot avoid monitoring, that's part of our job, but our main duty is to do everything we can to help the schools improve. So before I took office, we developed the following mission statement. The Department of Education is a service organization dedicated to raising academic results and empowering parents. I recently had a conversation with a secretary who had served in the department for many years through different administrations. She told me she would frequently accompany program specialists in their visits to the schools. The people in the schools would be nervous that the Department of Education was coming to judge them. But now in my administration, they welcome us, knowing we were there to help. Yes, I said that's exactly what I want. The first on the initiative is a good example of that. Improvement teams of highly qualified teachers and administrators visit the schools to help them improve. One of their projects focuses on the bottom 5% of schools and test scores. After 2 years of our project, 70% of those schools were no longer in the bottom 5%, 70% of those schools. I will take two initiatives out of order because of their importance. Eighth is teacher retention and recruitment. Last year, when I spoke to you, I described a crisis that we have, that more teachers are leaving the profession than are coming into our classrooms. More leaving than coming in. If we don't do something radical to change that, we could end up with no teachers. Imagine how the public would react to that. There were efforts last year to increase teacher salaries and to pass a bill to give administrators incentives to support teachers on issues of discipline, which is the second most important reason teachers give when we survey them as to why they leave the profession. Unfortunately, they didn't succeed last year. I hope they will succeed this year. We must renew Proposition 123 and increase the income from the land trust, which is overflowing with money, to increase teacher salaries. We should also deal with the aggregate control limit promptly, so schools are not in a panic in the last minute that they could lose 60% of their budget and have to lay off 60% of their teachers. Imagine something like that and the remaining 40% of the teachers having to deal with all the students, and how parents would feel about that. The other one I want to take out of order is safety, which I spoke about earlier. We have increased the number of schools with police officers to protect students and staff from 190 to 565. 190 to 565. Pursuant to your legislation, money left over after all schools that ask for a police officer have received one is to be allocated to counselors and social workers. Those paid for by the state increased from 565 to 630. The second initiative on your list is leadership training. Leadership is crucial. There is no such thing as a great school or a great district without a great leader. To date, this section of the department has trained 2,900 principals and other leaders. At the end of the course, the attendees are asked whether they would recommend the course to others. 100% of principals and other leaders have said yes, which is why the number of trainings have expanded so dramatically. The third initiative on your list is data that informs instruction. If you look on the one of the screens on the side of the room, you'll see a list. You'll see a chart that is taken from a scatter diagram on our website that shows the research we've done and the data we've accumulated. The x-axis is, the y-axis is degree of, the y-axis is the degree of poverty, and the x-axis is proficiency. The school that is not doing well can go up the vertical line and find schools with the same degree of poverty that are doing better on test scores. If you look at the chart on the extreme right, you'll see we've colored one of those lines. That's those are the schools with the most poverty, and you'll see from the bottom button to the top button an incredible difference in proficiency. And so we make this available to the school, so the school that's on the bottom can call a school that's at or near the top, which has the same poverty, and ask them what they're doing to help them improve. This proves that poverty is no excuse for low proficiency scores. Another example is an experiment we did at the Wilson School. It's a school in a poor area of town with low proficiency. We sent people from our department to that school every week to work with fifth grade teachers to help them improve. The English scores went up 36.7%, and the math scores went up 40.6%. 40.6% increase in their proficiency scores. One of the things we learned from the data, one of the things we learned from the data is a different scattered chart, which is a list of schools with 80 or 90% graduation rates and under 10% proficiency rates. The list is up there now. In some cases, the schools at the top of that chart with 80 or 90% graduation rates have 2 or 3% proficiency rates. These schools are issuing fraudulent diplomas. Companies are noticing. CEOs are telling me that they have applicants come with high school diplomas without the skill they expect from a high school diploma. Even back when I was in the legislature, I was known as someone who crusades for excellence against mediocrity. We cannot have excellence if we graduate students who have not learned anything. Between 2003 and 2011, we had the Ames test. Some of you will remember it. In fact, some of you who are grown-ups now took it as students. That students had to pass to graduate. The cut score was set at a reasonable level, and the students had 5 chances to pass a sophomore level test, including 2 chances senior year. So I never heard of anyone who was willing to study who could not graduate. But I did hear a lot about students who failed the first time and studied really hard so that they could pass the test and graduate, which they did. Unfortunately, when I left this office to become Attorney General, that requirement was repealed. We need to bring a modified version of it back. Senator Kavanaugh has been kind enough to introduce a bill in the Senate to require that to graduate, a student must either pass the high school test with a reasonable cutoff level and multiple chances to pass, or alternatively be certified for a trade in a career technical education program. We want every student, without exception, to graduate college or career ready. I hope when that bill comes to the House, it will have your careful consideration. Students need to be competent either with the ACT, the high school test that they all have to take, or certified for a trade so they can get a good job after high school. The fourth initiative on your list is Move On When Reading. Our state has long had a policy that students in the 3rd grade who cannot yet read should not go to the 4th grade. But there was a loophole where district superintendents could say that a student was making adequate progress and they could send them to the 4th grade. That loophole was abused, and too many students that did not read went into the 4th grade. If you can't read when you go into the 4th grade, you're doomed. You can't learn if you can't read. Working with the state board, we have closed that loophole. Again, our most important role is to help. We have 34 coaches who visit 1st grades and teach the teachers the science of reading. 5th is teaching English to English language learners. In 2000, the voters overwhelmingly approved an initiative requiring that students be taught English who need to learn English through structured English immersion and not through bilingual education. When I first took office in 2003, bilingual education was pretty much universal. My 2 predecessors had not enforced that initiative. The percentage of students who became proficient in English in 1 year under that system of bilingual education was a pathetic 4%. At that rate, almost no one would ever become proficient and they would fail in the economy. We instituted structured English immersion and, more important, intensive training of teachers as to how to teach structured English immersion. And we got the rate up from 4% to 31% in 1 year. At 31% in 1 year, almost everybody becomes proficient. And this success was due in large part to intensive training of teachers. In 2010, when I was elected Attorney General and no longer Superintendent of Schools, my successors did not continue that training. Proficiency rates plummeted. Now the teachers are again getting the training they need. Structured English immersion districts are outperforming the 10 districts that held on to dual language, which I consider to be non-legal, and we have legal cases on that. But the structured English immersion schools are outperforming those that have dual language 3 to 1. 3 to 1 in their proficiency in English rates. The 6th initiative on your list is helping our colleges of education do a better job of preparing teachers for the classroom. As the superintendent of schools, I serve on the Board of Regents and work hard to encourage colleges of education to substitute courses that give teachers the skills needed to teach effectively for courses that do not. Historically, superintendents are members of the Board of Regents, but they don't go to the meetings. I go to the meetings because I think it's so important. Our responsibility is to produce students that can do well in college, and their responsibility is to train teachers who can train them to do that. And so we've gone over all the courses, and we've been encouraging that colleges eliminate those courses that don't teach the teachers how to teach and substitute courses that do teach the teachers how to teach. The 7th initiative on your list is a radical expansion of what used to be called vocational education. It's now called career technical education. Our goal is that every student, as I mentioned earlier, graduates college or career ready. If a student does not plan to go forward with education, that student should have a skill that will enable the student to get a well-paying job. For this purpose, we formed the Arizona Education Economic Commission. Many of Arizona's largest corporations participate and let us know the skills that our CTE teachers must teach for students to qualify for good jobs with the company. So that's our deal with the companies, because they're complaining that, we have great companies in our state, but they complain that we have a shortage of skilled workers. So my deal with them is, I have access to 1 million students. We'll give you the skilled workers. Your part of the deal is you give us the skills that they need so that these students, when they graduate, can get good jobs. And so we teach those skills that the companies tell us to teach. The ninth on your list is County Consortium. We are working with county superintendents to bring more effective professional development into the classrooms, especially in rural areas. As an example, our work with Yuma County has brought 1,200 educators to our joint professional development classes. The 10th initiative on your list is tutoring. We allocated $40 million of federal money to free tutoring to anyone whose parents applied. 20% of the students who got tutoring, get this, made 6 months progress in one 6-week tutoring period. Half a year's progress in a 6-week tutoring session. 12th is character education. Someone with character but no academic achievement is powerless, but someone with academic achievement but no character is dangerous. Our favorite character education program is Character Counts. And this past year we established a student-parent Character Counts advisory cadre. We have also approved 9 other character programs that schools can choose if they prefer and receive the funding appropriated by you. 13th is a red tape reduction, so teachers and staffs can focus more on educating students. We reduced the needs assessment from 168 questions to 20, and reduced testing time for kindergarten teachers by 80%. The 14th initiative is the Arizona Digital Education Library, a library of 14,000 videos on our website where teachers can watch a master teacher teach a given subject or even use the video with the class. 75 are internally produced videos, 12,500 are through our partnership with Khan Academy, and 2,200 are from Prager. 15th and last is perhaps the most revolutionary change in today's world to improve academic outcomes. This is the best program we have found for education application of artificial intelligence. It is from Khan Academy again, and it's called Conmigo. It does not substitute for teachers, it helps them. It gives them the equivalent of 2 assistants so they can concentrate on creative teaching. Study shows that the most effective means of teaching is one-on-one tutoring. I talked about that a little earlier. But we can't afford to hire 1 million tutors for our 1 million students. But Conmigo gives every student a tutor. It does not answer their questions. It asks them questions to lead them to the answers, the Socratic method. Today, when a teacher gives a test, some students get 90% and others get 75%. Those with 70% are moved to the next grade, missing 30% of the knowledge they need for continuing their studies. They can be lost. With Conmigo, the teacher can say, here's what you did not learn from the test. Use Conmigo to tutor you on the subject. Then all students could move on with 90% or more of the knowledge they need. We have paid $1.5 million to Conmigo to cover the first 100,000 students. The rest can be covered for $25 per student per year. We will work hard to convince public schools it is worth it. We showed that live human tutors make a huge difference. We can't afford 1 million of them, but Conmigo will give every student a tutoring. This is the future, and we are making the tools available today. At the outset, I described our mission statement that the Department of Education is a service organization committed to raising academic outcomes and empower parents. We established a hotline so parents not satisfied with responses from districts could contact us directly. And of course, there are empowerment scholarship accounts. Now I'm getting to a controversy. We have families with, say, 3 children. 2 are doing fine in the neighborhood school, but even a good school cannot necessarily meet the needs of all the students. The 3rd child's needs are not being met. So with empowerment scholarship accounts, the parents can find a school that meets the needs of the 3rd child. It is hard to understand how anyone could think the family should not have the ability for the 3rd child's needs to be met. Thank you for inviting me and for being so attentive. I'm now happy to take your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, Superintendent. Before we get into questions, at the outset you mentioned the heroism of a school safety officer.
Yeah, Officer Bonanno.
Sorry?
Officer Bonanno.
Officer Bonanno.
Mm-hmm.
And is he here today?
He's not, but in the next few weeks, we'll have a ceremony to honor him.
Okay, excellent. Well, I just would like to convey the committee's appreciation. This is a tragedy that has been averted. We're glad that he was there on campus and able to interdict what
I am so happy he was there. He saved the lives of 20 kids and a number of adults. He saved the parents from the grief of losing their child, and it was the skin of our teeth. He'd only been there 2 weeks, and it was on money that we happened to find additional money for more school resource officers.
Now, was the person who was on campus a student?
No.
Wasn't a student?
No, it was an adult.
So yeah, there couldn't have been enough counselors or social workers to have helped that individual at that moment when you have intruders on campus. Is
Well,
that right?
if somebody comes in determined to kill kids, counselor's not going to do any good. The counselor will just get killed.
Okay. All right. Well, I do think that was important to point out. Thank you for your agency and seeing the value of expanding this program, and I hope we see this bill get signed into law to give you more resources.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having passed the bill.
Of course. We're now in line for questions. Are there questions?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Simicek.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Horne, for being here. I wanted to share an email I had received from a constituent and then ask some questions.
Representative, would you put the microphone closer?
I'm so sorry. This is an email from a constituent who had reached out to me, and I just wanted to share it with you and then ask you a question about it. Her name is Rachel Rulis, and she has a child named Elizabeth, who was part of the program. This is the tutoring program you spoke of just a few moments ago, until it was abruptly canceled, and she's not sure what she's going to do to replace it because her student's math proficiency is years below her grade level. She says, honestly, she struggles since COVID, and despite our efforts to help, we didn't see results until we enrolled in the Sylvan Learning Center through the Achievement Tutoring Program. Attending Sylvan gave our students more structure. She started building skill, and most importantly, she started building confidence that she would be able to catch up to her peers. Having access to tutoring gave Elizabeth the hope that math was not impossible, and losing that access has been so disappointing. They have to look into other tutoring programs, but they're really concerned that they won't be able to fund those programs because there is a price tag attached. And I just wanted to echo what Ms. Rilla's concerns are for her daughter. And speaking on behalf of all of Arizona students, I was very disappointed to hear about the abrupt ending of this program with no notification to children and their families. The free tutoring program that has been around for about a year, and we know it was funded by ESSER dollars, and we know that it was only for a limited time. We not intended to last forever, but the Arizona Department of Education announced in October that it would continue to offer the program until at least the end of the current school year. The ADE severely underestimated the cost of the program and the funding just ran out. Students who were using it and seeing very good results are now suddenly left having to pay out of pocket or go without tutoring when they thought they would have free services through May. What do you say to these families?
Yes, well, first of all, let me say that the problem is some families can afford to pay for tutoring and some can't. The reason that short notice was given was that the federal government set a deadline for the regular ESSER program where we could give money to our schools to do the tutoring, which was most of it, or hire a private company. After that deadline, we could no longer have the schools do it. It had to be through private companies. And they charge a lot more than what we pay the schools. So it was more expensive than we anticipated. And we had a lot of, because of the success of the program, we had a lot signed up. So we had taken back $40 million from ESSER funds from programs that had been awarded to institutions by my predecessor that did not improve academics. So we asked all the recipients, show that your program improves academics. If they couldn't show it, we took the money back. It was $40 million, and we spent it on the tutoring. Once the money runs out, we can't spend money we don't have. But I have a solution. Her child can get tutoring from Conmigo. All she has to do is talk to her principal and the superintendent or the superintendent of that district and say, for $25 per student per year, we can have tutoring for all our kids, that they'll all be much more successful, and that's the answer. And that's why I say it's the future, and we're providing the tools for that today.
Mr. Chair?
Representative.
I hear what you're saying. I'm just curious as why these families in October and then less than 2 months later, it was literally cut off abruptly with no notification.
Yeah, the answer is
over a Christmas break.
it cost us a lot more than we thought because of the higher fees of the private companies and because of the number of students who were receiving the tutoring.
Mr. Chair?
Please proceed.
So was there some sort of mismanagement of money? Because it seems like if you're going to offer a program or to make a statement to these families that they will have it through the school year through May, that would have been something that was prior, calculated prior.
Yeah, that's what we thought. And, I don't do this myself, but I'm sure the people who do that program, as soon as they found out that the money was running out, they notified people.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions? Representative Fink.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Superintendent Horne, thank you for coming. I also want to thank you for the lawsuit that you've done. I don't know if you're aware that I'm one of the parents.
I'm sorry?
I'm one of the parents on that lawsuit to protect women's sports, so I appreciate your efforts on that. But also, question on the move on when reading. My concern is that we are keeping kids back that maybe have a disability. I have 6 kids. I had to deal with dyslexia, auditory processing, visual processing. Those are type of things, and not all those things are available at the school. And so I feel sometimes that we're not addressing the root cause of the problems for the kids with reading, and that it's very stressful for 3rd graders to go to a test and think they're not going to pass because if they don't move on. And that's, I've got lots of accounts of real anxiety and panic attacks for these children. So anyway, thoughts on what we can do to make sure that we're dealing with the root cause of the learning disability?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you. Mr. Chair, Representative Fink. The basis for what we're doing with Move On Reading precedes me by a lot, but I became very interested in it because I discovered something called the Mississippi Miracle. Mississippi was always last. Everybody used to say, thanks God for Mississippi. So they know they wouldn't be last. All of a sudden, Mississippi jumped to the middle of the pack. So everybody wanted to know, what did they do? They took the requirement that kids read before they go to 4th grade very seriously. They held back 9% of their kids. We hold back a fraction of 1%. When you hold back 9% of your kids, everyone doesn't want a child to be held back. The parents don't want it. The school doesn't want to have to explain it to the parents. So everyone puts a huge effort into be assuring that all those kids in third grade can read. And it moved them from the bottom of the pack to the middle of the pack. And so we're trying to follow that example. You know, this country is 50 laboratories. And when you see something successful, you want to imitate it. That's what happened in Mississippi. We're trying to imitate that too. Because it's a terrible tragedy. If a student goes to fourth grade, they may be, you know, there's no guardrail. Then teachers may promote them out of, you know, good feelings for the child, and they end up not being able to get an education because they can't read. So, so the point is, if we take seriously the rule, you have to read in third grade or you don't go to fourth grade, everybody in the school works really hard to be sure everyone can read in third grade.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Please proceed.
Also, you mentioned that last year you were having more teachers leave than coming in. Is that still the case now, or is there been efforts to improve the retention and also the incoming teachers?
Well, this is not going to improve until we raise the salaries. Teachers are not paid enough. And the money, there's money in the land trust to do this, and it needs to be paid directly to the teachers, because we had the experience where the teachers were supposed to get a 9% raise, I think it was, 20% raise. The teachers were supposed to get a 20% raise, but the money was sent to the districts and they diverted some of it and they didn't get the raise they were promised. We don't want that to happen again. So what we need is, in renewing Prop 123, we need to have more money coming from the trust. We need to send it directly to the teachers and not through the districts. And in addition to that, we need a bill, and it'll hopefully come before you, to encourage administrators to support teachers on discipline. Because teachers, you know, students need boundaries psychologically, but if they see one kid get away with things, they all start getting away with things. And pretty soon the class becomes anarchic, and the teacher can't teach, the kids can't learn. I served, as you may know, 24 years on a school board for Arizona's third largest district, and we were pretty strict, and we did well academically. So that's my answer to your question.
Mr. Chair?
Please. Representative Finks has the floor.
Okay, thank you. With that, you talked about, you know, discipline and other things. With your leadership training, are you helping your leaders to go back and teach their teachers on classroom management? Because sometimes that's really important. Is that part of your leadership training?
It absolutely is. It's,
okay.
as far as I'm concerned, it's number one importance. We do that, and we've had tremendous success in that.
Okay. Mr. Chair, is that okay?
I was going to tell you.
Please.
I was going to, Mr. Chair, Representative Fink, I was going to tell you, in my 24 years on the school board, we never reversed a teacher one time on discipline, not once in 24 years.
Okay.
We became known as the toughest district around. I remember a student appealing his discipline and said, I came from another school, I didn't realize you guys were so strict. And I said, could you please give that to me in writing so I can put it on the wall? Our learning went up, our test scores went up. We've got to have discipline in our classrooms, and unfortunately we have some administrators in our state whose attitude when a kid misbehaves, you poor darling, it's not your fault, you come from a bad family or something. No, we have to have consequences for misbehavior if we're going to have academic progress in our classrooms.
Totally agree. Mr. Chair?
One
thing also, in regards to, you know, the, you see the graduation rate, and then you also see, you know, how well they pass, you know, the proficiency. But also, I know it's the State Board of Education that does that, but in regards to the letter grades, in fact, you know, you have to have an 83 to be an A school. Now, we do 90 to a 100 and all that, but a lot of these schools that I've looked at were C or B schools, yet their proficiency is in the tank. So I don't know if you're working with the State Board of Ed
Sure.
to look at that.
The way we assign letter grades are two major factors and a number of minor factors. Two major factors are proficiency and improvement. A teacher who takes kids that are 2 years behind and makes 2 years progress in 1 year is a better teacher in a poor neighborhood, is a better teacher than a teacher in a rich neighborhood who has the kids come from home already prepared and ends up with the same proficiency rate. We have to reward improvement. So it's about 50-50 between proficiency and improvement, and then there are a number of other minor factors as well.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Simicek.
Thank you. In regards to the teacher raises that you had mentioned, I'm a prior teacher myself, so I definitely know that it's an underpaid job. My question to you is, why are we not focusing on the entire, our entire school administration, including my daughter, for example, is special education. So her teacher has paras, and we have cafeteria
Right.
workers and bus drivers. How come we're not seeing raises for them in regards to alongside when we're giving raises to our teachers and these types of bills that were the one presented last session?
Yeah, I understand that question because in my district, my 24 years, we always gave the same raise to everyone. Teachers, classified, certified, classified, and administrators never got more of a % raise than the teachers got. The problem is we have an incredible emergency right now. We have got to turn this around for teachers. And so I think we can focus on that. Hopefully the district can find money for classified, and if not, we can try to deal with that later. But right now, the teacher situation is desperate, and we have absolutely got to raise our teacher salaries.
Mr. Chair?
Representative.
I like to use the analogy of a car. So let's call the teachers the frame of a car. But if you don't put tires on it and you don't put an engine in there, it's not going to move, right? So I do want to state and that although I'm definitely for pro teacher raises, without giving raises to all the other ones, they will also eventually leave as well if they're not making a livable wage. And then our teachers are really going to be in trouble.
Yes, well, I'm hoping the districts can do that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Yes.
I serve on the Deer Valley Unified School District Governing Board, and we were not able to pass our bond and override this year. So we're going to be looking at extensive cuts. So as far as pushing that back on our school districts, I'm not sure that that's going to be an option this year.
I'm sorry you didn't pass your override. That's terrible. It means you have to cut. So I'm hoping your citizens will show more wisdom next election.
Superintendent Horne, I wanted to follow up on that because in the context of Prop 123, while the Republican plan is to direct 100% to teacher pay, no one's really talking about the other element here. The executive budget and the JLBC baseline propose an annual formulaic increase of $174 million. That is wide open for you to use however you would like. And typically, local education agencies use those. A good chunk of that goes to certified staff. In this case, should Prop 123 go to the ballot and support teacher pay, you're going to have $174 million that you can use for other critical positions. So I have yet to hear those who have concerns of prioritizing teachers tell me how they're going to spend the $174 million. The other thing I would note is I'd like to use the analogy of sending kids to school without any teachers there. What's the point? When you have a kid in a 90-person classroom or a 50-person classroom, you can have the best bus driver, the best cafeteria services worker, the best custodian and counselor and social worker, but you will have no learning happening in that classroom without a qualified teacher at the front of it. That is the challenge before us. And I think we have to take bold steps, both in terms of pay, but also school culture. Workplace hygiene matters a great deal, especially in education. So I applaud you for your efforts. I did want to focus on...
Mr. Chair, before you go on, I just want to say your answer was a lot better than mine, which does not surprise me.
Well, you're too kind, Superintendent. You're too kind. And you're also a constituent of mine, so I appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback.
Matt and I met when he was going door to door, and he came to my door.
I did.
Yeah.
It was a pleasant surprise. I wanted to focus on one of the remarks you made as part of your initiatives, teacher preparation colleges. You noted that some of the teacher prep classes need to be eliminated. You have all of the teachers' colleges here in the audience today. I'm curious if you have any classes in mind that you saw that stuck out to you, or you may not and you need to get back to me, but I'm just interested in that because I think there are a lot of us who, we're going to have a Teachers Academy bill here to give more money to the Teachers Academy. We want the Academy to be training teachers to focus on academics, to focus on achievement. So what are some of the areas that you've seen that you feel like should be addressed?
Well, you have courses in teachers' colleges that don't really give the teachers, the students, the skills to teach their classes. I prepared a report for the Board of Regents, which I'm happy to share with you. We listed all the courses we thought should be eliminated in favor of courses that give the teacher skills. I also met with the leadership of all three teachers' colleges. ASU and NAU, they were very cooperative in making those corrections. U of A, they were not, but the head of their teachers' college has left. They have a terrific new president, and I'm sure U of A will improve a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I do have one more question.
Representative Fink.
In regards to English language learning, I had adopted refugee families, and Arizona was number 5 for receiving refugee families, plus we have quite a few that come from across the border. And is this, because I feel strongly immersion is the best way. That's the way I learned my second language, Italian. So is this being put forth through all the schools, or did you just do a pilot study in regards to this English language learning with
Structured
dual
English
language
immersion?
versus the immersion?
Well, in the year 2000, which is 23 years ago, 24 years ago, the voters approved an initiative requiring all the schools to do structured English immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first superintendent to enforce it. And as I told you, I got much better results. We have 10 districts, which is a small percentage of our districts, who are defying the law. And we're involved in litigation to make them conform with the law.
Okay, thank you.
One question around the tutoring, bringing that back up as Representative Simicek. I'm a big fan of high-dosage tutoring at the moment, real-time tutoring. I think summer camps that are fun, enriching, not punitive, and tutoring throughout the year are two key levers that educational institutions should be pulling to address certainly the COVID learning loss, but learning, unfinished learning in general. Should the legislature consider appropriating dollars to your tutoring program?
I would love it. I would love it. But as it is, we have, I think, 8 or 9 requests for dollars. Some of them absolutely crucial, like the Azella test is a test to determine whether students are English language learners. We don't have enough money for that test. And if we don't give the test to everybody, the federal government is going to punish us and take a lot more money away. So that's a high priority. We have other priorities. I was talking about what we've done to correct the problem with move on when reading from 3rd grade to 4th grade. We have said, the superintendents can't just say the student's making progress and have an exception. But if the student goes to summer school and passes another test that's equivalent to the regular test, then they can go on. We need money to pay for that test. As I say, we have 8 or 9 requests into the Appropriations Committee, and we hope they'll be nice to us.
All right. Representative Simicek? Oh, I see. Representative. That's all right. Okay.
I just wanted to touch on the last, in your presentation, you mentioned about the voucher program. And at the end of the year, you had put an automatic blanket on vouchers, 2,000 and under, that would be approved without question. And I just want to kind of understand the reasoning behind that and possibly talk about how that opens up fraud. For example, if someone were to spend $2,000 worth in Amazon gift cards without having to justify that, show it, or explain it, and that money, and we're seeing a lot of that going on. That sounds wild, but it's actually really happening. Why $2,000? How is that blanket money?
Yes, thank you for that question. If somebody misuses their request for under $2,000, we are auditing later on. We're just not checking before we send the money out. I'll explain the reason why. But we are auditing later on. It's called risk-based auditing, and this legislature approved risk-based auditing, and the governor signed it was either a bill or the budget, I'm not sure which, that approved risk-based auditing. So what we're doing is totally in conformance with what the legislature passed and the governor signed. Now, here's the reason. There are different ways that people can apply for money from us under the Empowerment Scholarship Account. And there are two main ways. One is Class Wallet, which is our vendor. The other is what we call reimbursement. They spend the money and they ask to be reimbursed. Last year, our reimbursements, when people asked for the money back, were within 30 days. This year, it was over 100 days. What was the difference? One of the big differences was that some people came to the legislature. I'm not criticizing the legislature, but this is just what happened. Came to the legislature and said, when we send our kids to private school, the tuition has to be paid through Class Wallet. Let us spend the money ourselves and seek reimbursement. We can save Class Wallet's fee. And nobody came to us and said, what would the effect of that be? The effect has been that reimbursements have increased to such a huge amount that in order to process them, we would have to do 500 a day. And with the staff that the legislature has funded for us, and everybody working very hard, and believe me, they're among our hardest workers, we can only do 200 a day. So we were falling further and further behind. It was over 100 days. That's outrageous. We had people come to the meetings. You know, we opened to the public. In public comments were pretty rough on me, but I understood why. They don't want to lay out money and have to wait 100 days to be paid back. We had to solve that problem. And so, but I didn't want to take sole responsibility for it. So we set up a working group with a number of ESA parents, and they came up with the idea of risk-based auditing, which is in the statute. And in fact, it's an ESA statute for 2,000 and under. But obviously, they didn't want to, you know, we've had some big ones that we turned down that we wouldn't ever want to get by. Somebody wanted $5,000 for a Rolex watch. Somebody wanted $24,000 for a golf simulator. There are a lot of examples like that. That we don't want to have happen. So we're not paying, over 2,000, we're not paying anything without checking it. Under 2,000, we're required to, because we can't be 100 days behind and have it still get worse. If my request to the legislature is repeal that provision that enables them to use reimbursement for private schools, and then we'll be able to catch up, and then we'll be able to check everything beforehand. But the risk-based auditing that we are doing for under 2,000 will claw back any money that's falsely, that shouldn't have been asked for. But we'll be able to do what we'd always done before that. Since I took office, we had a lot of people in the school choice movement say, don't check every item. You can't possibly do that. And I insisted we check every item. And for a year, we were able to do that. That we couldn't.
Schools and serving on the school board, I see this when it comes time to approve the budget, that our public schools have to account where every single dollar is going. So if we can say that it's okay to families to spend $2,000 or less on taxpayer dollars through this risk-based audit, what are we doing? And if we're talking about not being able to have enough people or bodies to process 500, reimbursements a day, how do we have enough people to go back and audit for this risk-based audit?
It can be done, but it's true. I mean, I served on a school board for 20 years, but we have some worse examples with public schools than we ever had with empowerment scholarship accounts. We just had a district fall $20 million behind. And I'm fighting like heck to get the Board of Supervisors, there's 5,000 students in that district, to advance money so they can make payroll. We've appointed a receiver to straighten things out. I haven't been able to get a response from the Board of Supervisors yet, but I'm trying as hard as I can. But that's a $20 million problem in a public school, so ESAs aren't the only place that ever have problems.
All right, Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Superintendent, for spending time with us today. I know it's a busy time, and I'm grateful you're able to be here. My focus is always to ensure boundless student success. And so hearing you talk about individual merit, as you stated, is to encourage hard work, creativity, and prevent becoming a third world, mediocre third world. And to me, it suggests that it's...
I'm sorry, could you talk a little slower, please?
Yes. And to me, it suggests that those elements are, as individual merit compared to anything else, are mutually exclusive. And I'll elaborate on that. And to a degree, I find it concerning, in particular because I grew up as an ELL student. Both my parents immigrated to the U.S., became naturalized citizens. I grew up Spanish, grew up speaking Spanish at home, became the first one to graduate high school, go on to college, get my master's, get a law degree, even as much as teaching myself grammar in law school because of the flawed ELL system. And so throughout my own educational journey, in addition to those that I shared it with, consistently found that the excessive testing was never a complete projection of our likelihood of success. A lot of that fell on the teachers and educators who went above and beyond to support students like myself and families like ours. And so when I heard you say our most important role is to help, and I want to challenge that to the degree of, with bilingual education, if that's working for some students, why are we not supporting those students being able to be successful in that effort versus having just a flat approach to supporting and finding success for all of our students?
Okay, thank you for that question. My family's like yours. My parents were Polish Jewish refugees from Hitler. And when I'd gone to, and they spoke Polish at home, and if I'd gone home and said the school wants to teach me half a day in Polish, they'd have said, they're crazy. You need to learn English. We have proven with data that with structured English immersion, the students learn English much more quickly, and then they can succeed academically. And it makes sense. If you're only getting half a day, let's say the school is what, 6 hours of instruction in school? If you only get 3 hours of instruction in English, and the rest of the school day and the rest of the 24-hour day are all in Spanish, you are not going to learn English properly. And we've proven with the data. The other half of that is, it's illegal. The voters passed an initiative. And the initiative says all students that have to learn English will be taught in structured English immersion. And it astounds me that we have elected public officials that are willing to defy the law. But the main thing is, it's no good for the students. There's studies that show it. If they're in structured English immersion, they learn English more quickly, then they can succeed academically.
Mr. Chair?
Please proceed.
I understand that the data shows that it is successful for students. What I'm saying is there are other ways that can be successful for the students that it's not helping, such as like me when I was in that situation.
Were you in structured English immersion or in bilingual?
What do you think?
I'm asking.
It was an immersion.
In immersion, okay. Well, what year was it? Give me an idea of the year.
Well, if you, right now I'm not going to go down history lane.
Well,
from
okay,
all-
here's my
all my
point. I wanted to
educational
know
years.
under whose administration it was, because after I left office, we have somebody who's an absolutely brilliant administrator who is handling our teaching of teachers how to teach structured English immersion. After I left office, she was let go, and all of that education stopped. So the proficiency rates plummeted. She's back, and we're teaching the teachers how to teach structured English immersion now.
Mr. Chair.
Representative.
And to that point, as you stated, voters passed, right, the requirement with I'd argue, very limited information of what we know now and what statistics show and how students can be successful. Because there are models that show students are successful in various formats and flexibility. And that could easily be forwarded to voters to reconsider. So whether it's illegal or not, it's determined by the people what gets to be determined illegal or not. But to that end, talking about student success, would you say, let's say that a proposition was put forward, whether referral or through the voters, to implement a program that's truly inclusive and supportive of all students? Because I have certainly worked hard and I've earned my way here despite all the statistics saying otherwise, and the expectation and the philosophies of individual merit, and the opportunities that folks have afforded me to be able, and the privilege to be able to be in positions. I would not be here if it were not for our educators and those opportunities. And so the question I asked to you is, let's say that hypothetical happened, would you be implementing and supportive of those programs?
Okay, let me tell you that, first of all, what we know now, we knew then. We have more recent data that confirms that. I told you about the 3-to-1 and our 31% versus 4%. But in the year 2000, I will refer you to a periodical called Education Next, and you can find it at educationnext.org, 2 N's in the middle, educationnext.org, and put in the name Guzman, G-U-Z-M-A-N, and you'll come to an article that was written in the year 2000 that did a very thorough study comparing the two, structured English immersion and bilingual education. And he found that everything that he measured, the structured English immersion outperformed the bilingual education, including graduation from high school, admission to college, average income, and an admission to high status occupations, a difference of 2-to-1 in favor of the students who had been in structured English immersion versus bilingual education. That was in the year 2000, and all our recent studies confirm it.
Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Thank you for that. At the same time, I do want to reiterate that didn't go to the question I asked. It was more whether you would allow and implement that flexibility should it be allowed.
It should not be allowed, no. It's cheating the students of the education they're entitled to learn English quickly and succeed academically, and it's illegal. Definitely should not be allowed. Let me say this. Once they become proficient in English, I'm all in favor of bilingualism. I myself have forgotten 4 languages. In recent years, I've been studying Spanish. I'm determined not to forget that. But I'm all in favor, not of bilingual education, but of bilingualism. In fact, that study that I mentioned to you shows that students who can speak 2 languages fluently do better academically than students who don't. So I'm all in favor of that, but the first job is, in this country, for them to become proficient in English.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you so much. I will leave it at that because obviously we have fundamental disagreements on how to support our bilingual and ELL students, but separately, I wanted to ask you about the school improvement grant. In September, I believe you spoke to the JLC about the $29 million and the federal school improvement grant monies that expired. Was that funding returned to ADE, and did you distribute to the schools that needed it?
I'm sorry, which one are you talking about?
The
Talking about Title I money?
the 29 million in the federal.
Yes,
school
everything we get from the
improvement.
federal government, we immediately distribute to the schools.
And how soon after?
Please leave the chair.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair.
Please
Mr. Chair.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How soon after notification?
I don't know exactly because, again, I don't do the work. I have people do that work, but I guarantee you that every dollar we get from the federal government, as soon as we can process it, we send to the schools. We don't keep any of it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair,
Yes, please proceed.
would it be okay if you provided us the list of schools that were impacted by this and to
Sure.
confirm that they received
Be
that
happy to
money?
do that.
Thank you.
I think we're out of time, unfortunately. So Superintendent Horne, thank you for coming to the committee and sharing your work that you're doing. We will eagerly await some information from the teachers' courses that you'll provide the committee. And please do keep in touch. We'll be closely watching what you're doing, and we thank you for your service to the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to report to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. And as everybody moves around and gets situated, we'll have, is there a representative from ABOR that wants to speak and open up the Teachers Academy conversation? So you'll want to get into place, and then our Dean Basile will be next in line for our rapid succession presentations. Thank you all. Okay. All right. Seems like people are getting settled in. We'll make one slight change. I know the community colleges have an event, and Lauren asked if, Armour asked if she could present for Maricopa County earlier, so we will facilitate that following ABOR's presentation. That's okay. So we'll do an audible here to help accommodate them. But with that, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brad Kendricks. I'm the Vice President for Finance Strategy and Governance at the Arizona Board of Regents. And as part of my portfolio, we administer the Arizona Teachers Academy and the funding that is provided by the legislature for that program. So I've been asked to give a few minutes today kind of introducing the program so that you can prepare for your further discussion. Each of you have a copy of the annual report that we published to the legislature that includes some of the key statutory data required about the Teachers Academy. But just by way of summarizing that, the ATA program is funded as a mechanism for increasing the number of teachers in our K-12 classrooms and improving the quality of those teachers' qualifications. So to that end, we provide funding for some very specific planks. The biggest and most central is for students who are participating in teacher education programs. So those are the degrees that lead them to be qualified as teachers. In addition, we have post-baccalaureate programs and coursework that move teachers or teacher candidates into teacher certification pathways or to be qualified to teach different dual enrollment requirements. In addition, we have master's degree students. We have some teachers who are pursuing national board certification and the testing associated with that credential. And we provide teacher induction resources, so that those are resources, mentorship, and supports for students who are entering the classroom for the first time. So each of the colleges and universities that participate in this program help us to define which of their programs qualify under these pathways. So that includes traditional things like early childhood education and teachers education programs, but also includes those commonly taught disciplines. So you may see degrees in history, mathematics, and so forth. So right now, participants in the program include Arizona State University, Northern Arizona University, University of Arizona, as well as the Maricopa Community Colleges, Pima Community College, and Central Arizona College. So by way of what's actually going on, we've just closed out our 7th year of funding for students. So in this last year, FY24, we supported about 3,300 students, just under 3,300 students, and that was around 2,400 in FY20, so a meaningful increase over the last several years. By the way this program is structured is that ABOR works with each of the colleges and universities that are participating in order to sign an information sharing and funding agreement so that they agree with the terms of this program. We then, for all those colleges, collect information on how many students they have enrolled in the pathways for teacher education, and we create a budget with the available legislative funding that is divided across essentially the amount of the teacher candidates that they are currently teaching. So the universities then take that pile of funding and they advertise that and get students to be involved through their normal financial aid pathways. So this is a last dollar scholarship program. So what that means is that they're working with the students like they do all other students to figure out what types of merit and need-based aid they're eligible for. If they have unmet need and they want to be a teacher and are enrolled in one of these programs, they have the option of having the rest of that need covered by the ATA. So those students who opt into that form of financial aid then sign agreements with the universities that they will complete 1 year of service for every year of funding that they receive under this program. And that service is defined by teaching in Arizona K-12 schools. So those students, those agreements are then collected by the universities, that's provided back to ABOR, and we share it with a third-party provider who administers both collecting information from the graduates about the schools that they are serving in or collecting on the debt for those students that decide to pursue a different pathway. So by way of recent history, the program has had $15 million appropriated for several years. In FY24, that amount was temporarily increased up to $30 million, which allowed for growth in the program. And then we saw that amount fall in this last budget year, so the current year that we are in, to $16 million in total funding for that program. The program is designed in statute such that any funds that are unexpended in a current year are allowed to roll over. So as I mentioned, these are last dollar scholarships, which means all we have is estimates. We have budgets on the front end. So we have controls to ensure that the universities don't spend more than they're allocated in a current year. However, depending on the actual need of the individual students, it may come in less than the amount that's there. So we had a small surplus that had accumulated. So between the funding that had come in and the small surplus, we were able to prioritize the students who are currently enrolled in these 4-year programs. So one thing that's important to note is that these are not 1-year scholarships. While they're awarded on a 1-year basis, we have students who are really relying on this funding to be available for the entirety of a 2-year graduate program or a 4-year undergraduate program. So when the additional funding came in FY24, we gave guidance to the universities to increase the size of the student pipeline. They could bring more students into the program, but we couldn't spend all of that money up front right away because we needed to ensure that we could account for 4 years of an educational pathway. So this last year with the reduction in funding, we have given similar guidance to the universities. So for the current year, we have cut back on some of the shorter term programs. So we have a smaller level of participation in the national certification program and have tightened some of the restrictions on funding for testing. But the core academic programs, we've maintained those students that are currently enrolled in that and just slightly decrease the number of students who could enroll this year. At current funding levels, we've signaled to the university, and these are all estimates, but that we are expecting in FY26 to reduce the number of students entering the program by 36%, and then to reduce by 53% in 27, to get us back to that sustained pipeline of what our current funding allows.
What's that in terms of funding? The 36% is worth how much?
That is a great question that I don't have in front of me, but it's getting us back to that 15 million or 16 million now in total spend.
It would be good because it'd be helpful for us to understand context
Yep.
between 15 million and something beyond 15 million.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Is that
So we
it?
can absolutely follow up. So that's it. I can invite questions, and as you've already noted, we have the university representatives here as well to provide more context about their students and programs.
Okay, so that's an overview of the Teachers Academy in general. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Representative Fink.
You mentioned that they get excuse me, let me get up here, 1-year scholarships, but that, they're expecting it for 4 years. Is there any qualifications to make sure that they get it from year to year? Like, are they continuing, are the grades or anything like that that you use to be able to make sure that you will keep that 1-year scholarship till the time they finish?
Yes, so Chair, Representative. So I'll leave it to the universities to add some specific context if there's anything in their programs. What I will tell you is that they have to maintain satisfactory academic progress. They have to be enrolled in the program continuously in order to continue receiving it. So they are, like all financial aid, it is a year-to-year decision, but the understanding is that they're continuing in the program, that they're going to do that. If they take funding under this program and then do not continue in that program, that also signals back to us, because then we have to work with that student to begin servicing the debt that they accrued, because they're no longer on that pathway in order to get requisite employment.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to shift to the community colleges first. Sorry, we're doing an audible. So we'll have Maricopa first, followed by Pima, and then we'll go to ASU. And remember, you have 5 minutes for your presentation, so keep it snappy. And in terms of the members asking questions, we're going to I'd ask you to be judicious with your questions so that we can get through everybody and then proceed to bills at 4 o'clock. That's the goal I have. All right.
Thank you.
Please, you're recognized.
Chairman Gress, members of the committee, my name is Lauren Armour. Thank you for moving me up in the schedule. I am here on behalf of Maricopa Community Colleges to tell you about our participation in the Arizona Teachers Academy. We offer post-baccalaureate programs at Rio Salado College and Scottsdale Community College. Rio Salado offers 2 pathways, the traditional program and the teacher in residence program. We also have start dates 48 weeks a year. So if you want to become a teacher, you can start now, and you can do it with Rio. Our Scottsdale program is called STEP, the Scottsdale Teacher Education Partnership, and it's the only 1-year model to get your post-baccalaureate degree to teach in the Valley. It's a hybrid and, of course, more intensive program to accommodate for that shorter timeline. You can see that the core requirements for enrolling in post-baccalaureate education are lengthy. I won't go through them all, but suffice it to say there's quite a bit that goes into the process of getting this credential. We have about 200 students enrolled each year across our 2 programs across the 2 post-baccalaureate programs, and about 1/3 of that group participates in the Arizona Teachers Academy. The reason that it's only about 1/3 is twofold. One, we have a bit of a wait list now for participation so some students apply and don't get it. But also, many of our students are Pell eligible. This being a last dollar scholarship, they get the Pell dollars first, and that will cover their tuition. Rio Salado has about 3/4 of our total students, with Scottsdale having the remaining 1/4. Traditional students, those aged 24 and under, are just 20% of our 2 programs. It's far more typical, about 80%, to have students over the age of 25 or higher. You can see here that the previous degrees for our post-bac come from all kinds of different backgrounds, so no prerequisite there. I am sorry this is so small, but I couldn't make it any bigger, unfortunately. Our grads and current students are teaching I think what you need to see here, most importantly, is that they are not just all across the valley, they are all across the state. This program is a pipeline for teachers just about everywhere. This is specifically our Scottsdale alums and current students. And this is Rio. Those are the school districts they're in. Those are the cities. And yeah, you can see they really run the gamut in just about every respect: age, location, subject matter. I think it's really important to highlight what I consider the highest virtue of our program, which is its low, affordable cost. Last year, we received the last reported year, we received $327,000 in funds, and we serviced 157 students for those funds. That comes out to about $2,000 per student. We have some new training programs for teachers coming, already online. We have 2 bachelors of education. We just got the authority a few years ago to offer bachelor's degrees. We now have 2 bachelor's degrees in education that serve a critical shortage: early childhood education, dual language, and elementary special ed. These programs are 1/4 the cost of the next most inexpensive program in the county, but they are not currently eligible for the Teachers Academy. We are running a bill this year to remedy that and give our students a fair shot at these dollars. And that's it.
All right.
I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Lauren. Our next person is Pima College. Do you have any handouts for us or anything?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Sanders? All right, please
Great.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Tirza Sanders, and I'm here to represent Pima Community College. Pima Community College definitely values the funding that's received by the Arizona Teacher Academy. ATA's funding is essential to our program enrollment and our great completion numbers. Last year, over 200 students used Arizona Teacher Academy funding. Like Maricopa Community College, our average student is older than the typical university students. We serve working adults who often already are working in school as aides, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, or teachers while attending our certification or endorsement programs. We have very strong partnerships with Arizona school districts, and those are essential to our success. Our students work in 66 different districts around Arizona. Due to the ability to take the coursework online, we serve many rural areas that are often underserved, like Nogales, Douglas, Sierra Vista. This ability to access online courses and receive funding from Arizona Teacher Academy allows for entry to the profession for those living in these rural areas. And they really understand the needs of rural students, and they can stay and work in their own communities. We also have strong partnerships with our local Tucson school districts, with the majority of our students coming from places like Amphitheater, Marana, Tucson Unified, Sunnyside, and Vail. The majority of our students have teaching contracts that they're already fulfilling, or they've lined up upon graduation. About 98% of our students are already in the classroom or have those contracts lined up right when they graduate. Because our program is a post-bac, many students have already used their financial aid eligibility when they pursued their undergraduate degrees, and therefore, without the Arizona Teacher Academy, they would choose not to pursue teaching, or they'd be left with student loans to enter a profession that, while fulfilling, may not often be high-paying. Close to 50% of our students are pursuing special education, a mild, moderate special education certification or endorsement. And as you know, special education teachers are currently the highest need position in the state. We actively recruit and encourage our students to fill this need, and we collaborate with districts to make sure our program produces high-quality special education teachers that meet the needs of Arizona schools. One such collaboration is with Amphitheater's Grow Your Own program. They recruit and refer students to our special education certification endorsement program. And then we also refer students to them to fill the classroom need while they're in our program. Another initiative that we're extremely proud of is our literacy endorsement courses. We were the first college in the state to have our literacy endorsement approved, and we've since provided over 500 students with the coursework needed for the literacy endorsement. As well, our pass rate on the exam is higher than the national average, and we've created lots of partnerships with a variety of districts, including Marana, Vail, Sahuarita, Nogales, Sunnyside, in attempts to help school districts meet that 2028 literacy endorsement deadline. Thank you for the opportunity to share the great things we're doing at Pima Community College, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? I just want to note, I'm really interested and excited about the special education certification. It is such a high need. So thank you for your work there. And then the literacy endorsement, that is the looming deadline, and getting schools and teachers ready. I mean, we have 56,000 teachers that all need that endorsement.
Yes.
I know special education is exempted from that, but outside of that, I mean, there's a lot of work to do. So thank you for your work. Thanks for sharing. Are you going to be having a 4-year degree coming online like Maricopa? Or?
Yes, we are in planning stages for that. And yes, Mr. Chair, we would also like to have ATA funding for that as well.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll head to the universities now, and we will kick it off with the one, the only, Dean Basile. I appreciate you being here. We've worked together for a long time now.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Chairman Gress, members of the committee, at ASU, we're defining the education workforce today more broadly, who's in it, the roles they play, how they work together, and we are taking a comprehensive approach to educator preparation that starts with flexibility and accessibility. We are thinking about how we do that using multiple modalities, multiple entry points, adaptable course schedules, and in our teacher preparation program, we have removed courses and are providing space today for specializations focused on advancing student academic success. The program is being designed to encourage districts to hire our teacher candidates from the start in right-sized jobs, not as instructors of record, although many are, and connecting curriculum to clinical experiences, also decreasing time to completion. At the graduate level, we're building programs that are customized to the needs of schools and districts, including working with those districts that are also now preparing their own teachers, their own paraprofessionals to teach. Partnerships for us have become multifaceted. We're changing teacher preparation, but at the same time, we are also working now with 68 schools in Arizona, 150 across the U.S. to actually change the staffing models of schools to move from one teacher, one classroom models to teams of teachers with distributed expertise. This is shifting lots of things that we are doing and trying to actually improve the entire education workforce as we think ahead to where kids need to be in the big W workforce. ATA has been an important lever for us for a very long time in terms of enrollment growth and other changes that we've needed to retain our teacher candidates. So teacher candidates with ATA, as you can see on the handout, it is driving enrollment and has driven enrollment for 5 consecutive years. You can see how the amount went up. Our enrollment went up, it went down. Our enrollment went down substantially, and it is supporting students 100% in terms of persistence. We have 589 students on the wait list. We continue to have a very large wait list, just given the numbers of who we are, what we do. We have also used ATA induction funds, have supported building Professional Educator Learning Hub, which has courses related to special education, behavior management, but we're also thinking about topics like AI and technology and durable skills. Other funding sources have allowed us to create the Community Educator Learning Hub for early career teachers, parents, tutors, and others. That has 6,000 users right now in Arizona. So all of this together is how we're beginning to think about this new blueprint for how we prepare teachers, who educators are, what they do, how they work with our kids, and how they really support student success. At ASU, we're fully utilizing ATA with a need for more. We're preparing teachers, but we're also designing a new blueprint for this education workforce. It will take ATA plus, I believe, substantive changes to teacher preparation to actually move all of this as we enter students for the new economy. Thank you very much.
All right, just one question. On the Academy Annual Report, the percentage of students who completed each year of the Academy and who plan to continue to the subsequent year, you have 100% every single year. What's the secret?
100%, because it's all of it, right? We're giving last dollar scholarships. We're providing emergency funds for students who need a couple $100, they need a month of rent, they need food, we do all of that in addition. We also have changed this program substantially to be more flexible, more nimble for students depending on what their needs are. We are encouraging students to work and we're making that work count. So we're also getting our students to completion sooner. So it is the whole, my point is it's the whole package, but ATA is a very, very large piece of that package.
All right, excellent. Representative Simichek.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us again what that number is for students that are on the wait list?
589
Mr.
as
Chair?
of yesterday.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you. So is it safe to say that additional funding would help to assist with our students that are wanting to attend public universities to become teachers?
100%.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we will, thank you very much, Dean Basile.
Yep, thanks. Thank you.
We will now move to our next presenter, Dr. Donnell Rui with NAU.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. Each year since the ATA was initiated, NAU has increased its annual enrollment